How do you fuel for a 12.5 day, almost 4,000 kilometer bike race? I've said quite a few times that the longer the ride or the race, the more it becomes just an eating contest.
Fastest hot dog shooter.
Rather than anything else, rather than fitness planning or anything like that. And normally when I say that, I'm talking about a 200, 400 kilometer race or a ride, not 4,000 kilometers. So it was something that I knew was obviously going to be quite important. Like I said in my previous video, I went into it largely blind. Obviously it's 10 times longer than anything I'd done before, but I think I dealt with it quite well, and I only really had a couple of hiccups along the way with the fueling. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I ate, how I planned it, how I found food, and what I'd do a little bit differently if I did it again. So it took me just over 12.5 days, and each of those days I was moving for average of 16 hours. So I had to think about fueling for a normal day, which is going to be a few thousand calories, and then obviously a 16-hour ride on top of it. I wasn't riding very hard, but you know, you're still moving for 16 hours of that. And then the other 8, half of it was probably faffing about, and the other 4 hours was sleeping every night. The main challenge with a race this long, compared to like a 1 or 2 day thing, is that 95% of the food that I ate, I had to gather along the route. I had to buy, basically. I couldn't just stock up with Sturka bar 50s. As much as I would have liked to, I don't think I can carry 300 bars, which I think roughly what it would have taken is about 300. So, my plan. Obviously, it's impossible to plan exactly what you're going to eat, what you're going to buy, how much of it you're going to eat, even over a 20-hour ride, let alone doing that 12.5 times. But I think I put a few things in place that gave me a lot of wiggle room, kind of plan for the worst case all the time, and then just kind of hope for the best. I planned a lot of redundancy into it. So there's two kind of main things that I was thinking about, is that I always had food on me. So if I'd say I had 4 pieces of food, I'd eat 2 of them and then get to the next village and then buy 2 more and then eat the 2 more that I had before. So it's always kind of like a rolling supply. I wouldn't just buy a few pieces of food, eat them all and then stop, buy some food, eat them all and then stop, because obviously that leaves no buffer. If I get to a village and the shops are closed, or the village is further away than I thought, or if I get there a little bit too late, then suddenly you could be like 5 hours without any food, which happened to me once, but I just wanted to avoid that at all costs. So I always had food on me, and like I said, I did that apart from twice. Once I got myself out of it, and the other time kind of ruined me quite a bit, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. The other thing, little and often, my stomach doesn't do well with massive kind of binge eating, like a massive meal. I just can't seem to take on a lot of food all at one time. So I knew basically every half an hour for 2 weeks I was just eating something. I didn't really care how small, I just had to take something in constantly, kind of keep those reserves topped up. And the key to doing that is just having a variety of food. So to allow my stomach to just be eating stuff constantly, I had to make sure I bought a variety of stuff, because if you give your stomach the same thing for a couple of days whilst you're cycling, it's not going to be very happy with you. As much as I loved packaged croissants in Europe, 1 day of those was kind of enough. So I need to bring on a lot of different types of food, normal food, like non-processed food as much as I could, but obviously that's not really possible sometimes. But you know, stopping for a chicken sandwich every now and again. And then more of that planned redundancy was Sturka backups. Now I couldn't fuel up entirely with Sturka, or even a lot with Sturka, because I didn't want to bring a trailer of bar 50s with me. But what I could do was hide a few caffeine gels in my backpack. Obviously they don't take up much room, but they've got 30 grams of carbs and 150 milligrams of caffeine, which is a lot. So I think I had 4 of these in my bag, and I used the last one on the last day. That was kind of my morale to get through the last day, was that I knew I'd had a caffeine gel, and it would get me through. But these kind of ideal for, you know, middle of the night, need to stay awake, need a little pick me up. Smash a few of those. And the other redundancy I planned is that I had a couple 90-gram Sturka sachets. So obviously these don't take up much room at all. Kind of stuff them in my bag, don't really weigh much. And there's 90 grams of carbs in here, which is insane. So I had 3 of these, and I'd use these when I'd know that I wasn't going to come across any food very often. So if I was riding through the night, I might have 10 hours where I don't come across anything I can buy, and obviously holding 10 hours worth of food is quite a lot. So that's when they came in. And one of the times that I ran out of food, I knew there wasn't any chance of me finding anything for about 5 hours, and I had no food. But luckily, obviously one of those is a lifesaver. Throwing those in a bottle goes down really easy. And yeah, got me to this next little village in Switzerland, I think it was. So that was the plan. Always have food on me, eat little and often all of the time, and then have the redundancy with the Stärke stuff. And it all worked. I mean, over 12 days it worked pretty well, but there were a few points where it didn't. I'm going to split up the race into two pretty distinct parts. The first half from Belgium to probably about Croatia, and then Croatia to the finish in Greece. First half, pissing it down with rain, absolutely miserable, clouds, cold, definitely a bit of a slog. But it meant that heat wasn't really a problem, so water wasn't really a problem at all. And then the second half was very much heat, very, very hot, kind of bouncing off 40 degrees the whole time. So most of the fueling was about keeping me cool and not overheating as much as it was getting the fuel in me. And obviously in the heat, it changes what your body wants as well. Lots of ice creams, basically. So the first half was quite easy. Obviously riding through Belgium, France, Switzerland, Italy, it's all quite familiar. It's all stuff that I've experienced before cycling in Europe a lot of bakeries, all the shops were quite familiar, so getting the food was quite easy and it was quite quick and I was quite efficient with it. I'd normally have like a massive packet of crisps that I stuffed up my jersey that I could just kind of nibble on through the day. I just have them dangling off my bars and I'd just be eating them. They're really easy to get down, obviously a lot of salt in there as well. I'd have a big packet of waffles, kind of just some slow burning carbs with a lot of sugar, and then I'd normally have a packet or two of like Haribos and stuff. And that was a good kind of formula that I'd stop at every shop. And then every time I did stop at a shop, I'd take 5 minutes just to down like a few Cokes or something. You know, it's all carbs, all goes in. All adds up. And lots of chicken sandwiches. Kind of have one of those a day. It's nice to have kind of a proper meal. Well, not a meal, but it's something you can eat on the go, and it does feel like normal food, so you're not just eating processed stuff all the time. So that was quite nice, and that was quite easy on the fueling. Apart from the last night I had in Italy, this was the first time I kind of screwed up. So I'd stopped at checkpoint 1. I stopped there for way longer than I wanted to because I wanted to skip the night, basically. It was freezing cold, so I stayed there for about 9 hours, and then early next morning I dropped down out of the Alps, and then we're just going to ride 400 kilometers across the north of Italy in just one bash, just go through the night and kind of make up the time that I'd lost the night before. But I failed to, because I've been used to sleeping a little bit in the night, I'd forgotten that I needed to buy food for the night riding. And for some reason, nothing is open in Italy in the night after about 10 o'clock. I don't know whether I just got unlucky. Yeah, nothing was open. And then I kind of realised at about 11 o'clock that I didn't have any food. I had like one bar or one bit of food on me, and I had like 6-7 hours in front of me that I had to ride through. Luckily I found a pizza restaurant, and they were very nice, they were all very kind, so I had a big pizza. I ate half of it and then stuffed the other half in a bin bag up my jersey, and that got me about 3 hours. But then I still had about 4 hours where I didn't have any food. I was already low on food before that, so I hadn't taken in enough. I used up my Stärke sachets by then, and stupidly I didn't stop and sleep. I should have just stopped and slept it off, but I just kind of rode through, and then I was really, really hungry by about 6 o'clock when I got into Slovenia, and I could finally eat something. But it's not just that moment that it kind of ruins. It wasn't the night when I was cycling slowly. It took me the whole of the day to kind of catch back up and for my body to feel normal again. So that 4 hours of not eating ruined like a day and a half of cycling. Obviously I felt awful as well. It's like a permanent bonk. But then, you know, body kind of processed it all, and I felt quite good after that. But that definitely taught me my lesson, and I didn't let that happen again. And then dropping out of Slovenia into Croatia, into the second half of the ride, instantly I went from like minus 3 degrees in the Alp to 40 degrees in Croatia in I think 2 days, which is quite a shock to the body. So not only are you really hot, but you're used to being really cold. So that was really difficult those first few days. So basically I was eating 1 or 2 ice creams and cold cans at every single place I stopped at, like every few hours, which was tasted amazing. I can't imagine it was great fueling though, but at the time you really don't care. And then it was a real challenge getting in the normal food, like the biscuits and stuff, because I don't know whether there's something everyone gets, but I don't really want to eat when it's really hot. But I just kept having to remind myself. Obviously I felt what it was like not to eat, so I just keep getting it down me, and that worked quite well. But it definitely shifted in that second half that I think the majority of the carbs that I was getting was from soft drink. I should probably add up how many cans I drank, but it was probably probably like 10 a day. Doesn't sound very good, but neither does cycling for 16 hours a day, so who cares? There is nothing quite like just cycling for 4 or 5 hours in the heat, feeling your body boil, and then like an oasis, you see one of those ice cream freezers at a petrol station. Oh, incredible. It must have been, 10 or 20 times. I just sat there 5 minutes, 2 ice creams. I don't want to think about how much that cost me. That wasn't really something I was thinking about at the time, but each of those were probably like 2-3 euros. Incredible. And the ice cream selection in Europe is so much better than in England. None of this Mr. Whippy shit or Calippos. Oh, it was all top quality ice cream. And as I mentioned in the other vid, more Stärke. These are these salt tabs. I was downing these every day. I was having like 2 of them a day. Absolute lifesavers. I'd cycled in the heat before and gotten heat stroke like 2 weeks before because I didn't take enough salt and electrolytes. So I definitely knew what the effects would have been like. But what would I have done differently if I was to do it now? Obviously I wouldn't have gone a night without eating. That was stupid. And that would have saved me a bunch of time. I think I wasted a lot of time kind of going into a shop and not knowing what I wanted to get, and kind of waiting until I was in the shop to kind of think about what I wanted. And then that's 5, 10, 15 minutes wasted. You add that up over all the shops that I stopped at, that was like hours that I lost. So that should have been something I was thinking about before getting to the shops, and getting to the villages was what I wanted, and then just be eating out so I could just be moving and eating more. I think that would have helped quite a bit. I'd probably stop for more real food. I only really stopped maybe 4 or 5 times over the whole 2 weeks for like an actual meal. I'd probably do that a few more times, get some actual hot food in you. Even just the morale boost from that would have been great. But there's a lot of processed food that I hate. But yeah, I think overall it went pretty well. Didn't have any stomach issues or anything like that. Actually, I had stomach issues once when I downed 1.5 litres of some fruit juice that I wasn't really sure what fruit it was. It was quite lumpy. And I just downed the whole thing and then couldn't eat anything for a couple of hours after that because I felt sick. I think there was like 150 grams of carbs in that, which is not very good for you, but lots of energy from that. But yeah, no real stomach issues apart from that. I could always eat normally. Thanks for listening to me ramble about food for however long this video is. If you want to get yourself some Stärke products, use my code in the description. 25% off. Bargains. It's good shit.